There we go at just about 6:02 on this Thursday morning, July 18th. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls, getting set for a busy show today. We are loaded with guests. We're going to talk first a bit about the Republican convention. Then we'll talk to Scott Ross, formerly of One Wisconsin Now. Talked to him last night at the Republican convention. We talked to Joe Zepecki, of course, because it's Thursday. We've got our music and history lesson for the day. We talked to Richard Trent, who's the new National Executive Director for Main Street Alliance. He's in Milwaukee for the convention to talk about the priorities of Main Street owners across Wisconsin and across the country, and where Republicans, frankly, are failing them on those fronts. And then we have our Women Win Wisconsin segment, where we will talk to a state Senate candidate, Kelly Peterson, from Northeast Wisconsin, plus Luke Mathers, plus Greg Bach, plus Brittany Merlot. So busy, I got to go catch my breath. We'll start this show coming up at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network and right here.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Thursday morning, July 18th, 2024. It's another beautiful day to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network or through the Civic Media app, maybe watching us on social media or catching us later by podcast. Thanks for subscribing, taking us along on your day. You can reach us for the show at any given time at 855-75-CIVIC. Again, 855-75-CIVIC. You hear so few calls with comments and questions because it's this early. Don't be shy. It's 6:07. We're always happy to hear from you. And, if we're busy talking to a guest, maybe playing something back on tape, we'll get to you. We want to hear what you've got to say. We love reading your comments on Facebook and on YouTube, which let's bring in Greg Bach from Waukesha here because we have to do this properly. Mr. Bach, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. How are you? I'm doing well, and thank you. And how are you?
Okay, very good. Thanks. All right. Speaking of comments, Tony's up in Ashland, and first he writes on YouTube, Pat, and then he follows up with, thought you might like a chant like J.D. Vance got last night. So apparently I missed people chanting J.D. Vance's name. But that Tony's chanting mine. Rhythm. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
J.D.
No, it doesn't work the same. So no, you don't have to chant, my name or Greg's name, but if you have a comment or question today, put it on Facebook or YouTube if you're watching us there, or send us a text, 855-75-CIVIC. And we see it. Well, we see it if I put the right window up on screen. Let me get that there. There, now I can see your texts when they come in. Otherwise, I just see, funny messages from Greg. He's really good at that. So we're going to jump into it's just a busy show today. We've talked to a couple of folks earlier. I talked to Scott Ross last night at the convention. We'll hear from him in just a couple of minutes about the J.D. Vance pick and others. We will hear from Joe Zepecki, as we always do on Thursday mornings, about the convention and some of the issues at play. In our second hour, we will get to meet Richard Trent. He's the new national director of the Main Street Alliance. That's a national group that works on behalf of small businesses and trying to get the message to the Republican Party, you're doing a lot of things wrong in terms of what small businesses need. So we'll talk to Richard Trent about those issues. And then we'll have our Women Win Wisconsin segment. And that one has State Senate candidate Kelly Peterson joining Nicole Slavin and Kate Duffy later this morning. And then we wrap things up with Luke Mathers, as we always do on Thursdays. 6 a.m. temperatures include 54 here on Lake Wissota. Hayward, it's at 44. It's in the 40s in July in Wisconsin, which, again, if this was your week for tent camping, first off, you're probably not listening, but second, sorry, but stay cuddled up in the sleeping bag. 44 in Hayward, 46 in Park Falls, 55 in Wausau, 55 in Green Bay. La Crosse is at 57. Wisconsin Rapids is 50. Oshkosh at 56. Madison 54. Waukesha 54 degrees as well. We are in the midst of the All-Star break here. The Brewers are off for a couple of more days. They're back in action Saturday evening at Minnesota, so you can catch the Brewers-Twins game Saturday, Sunday. The Saturday game, the pregame, starts at 5:35 on Civic Media stations WRCE in Richland Center, WRJN in Racine Kenosha, WCQM in Park Falls, WISS in Oshkosh, and then there's a Sunday afternoon game before the Brewers head to Chicago to play against the Cubs. And remember, from an Up North News standpoint, we have a daily newsletter that you can sign up for. Head to our homepage, upnorthnewswi.com, click newsletter in the top banner, and you'll be all up to date on the things that Christina Laurie puts together for us every day. Did you notice, Greg, that this is the first time I've been wearing a long sleeve shirt in nearly forever with these cool temperatures up here, and I'm here for it. I'm okay. Maybe not so much Alicia Saunders, who says, I think I can see my breath in Marinette this morning. I could believe it. It's a little chilly.
I could listen to that song. I think I can see my breath in Marionette. Because it's so cool. I could take this. I'm serious. I'm all for the 50s and the 60s. And if it's in the 40s where you're at, don't be like, it's so cold.
I'm good. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
The coming back to the whole part of, living in the Caribbean for a time. When you're there between Christmas and Easter, it is glorious. It is paradise. From Easter to Christmas, you're living next to an exhaust vent from hell, it feels like. And When you come back here and experience temperatures in the 40s, 50s, 60s, not 0 degrees, but, 50s, 60s,
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels so good after being in constant 90s week after week after week. And I think sometimes we take that for granted. So, because when people say, well, why did you move back? And part of it was we missed seasons, obviously family and friends. And part of it, too, was while we were down there, y'all elected Donald Trump as president. So we're like, okay, something's wrong. I got to go back. And that takes us into our coverage of the convention. First, I'm happy to report that neither Derek Van Orden nor the woman that he had a bump into in the line, she bumped him or he bumped her, who knows what, no charges will be filed. So Derek Van Orden, after claiming a vicious assault, it turns out they looked at the police body camera and said in so many words to Congressman Van Orden, get the hell out of here.
No. He referred to it as political violence.
Yes, it's political violence, you poor sweet baby. And of course, Derek Van Orden was involved in a dust-up at the convention day before yesterday when Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz was mocking former Speaker Kevin McCarthy because, of course, you have to have a little catfight down there. And Van Orden decided to insert himself as well and hollered at Matt Gaetz and called him a little bitch. We now get the extreme language warning on the label on this morning's show, thanks to Derek Van Orden wanting to, start a little playground fracas. The man needs anger management counseling. I mean, in just these two instances this week, he continues to prove this. And it's going to be an issue with whatever Democrat runs against him, which reminds me, this week in Eau Claire on Tuesday, the 3 Democrats who are vying to take on Derek Van Orden had their final candidate forum. Luke Mathers was part of taping that for Civic Media, and it's going to be put up on websites as a podcast. So we're going to ask Luke about details for that coming up a little later in the program. But also at the convention, of course, there was an immigration theme. And look, we all want secure borders. We all want immigration reform. We all remember that it was Donald Trump who killed a bipartisan deal. And yet they still have the cojones to talk about immigration last night. And I think it's best exemplified in this short clip from Texas Governor Greg Abbott really bringing the white nationalism to the convention theme of immigration.
He will arrest the criminal illegal immigrants and put them behind bars. Or send them back.
And what follows is several seconds of send them back, which, again, shows a whole lot of folks who have completely forgotten their roots. And who dishonor their great-grandparents and others. And don't tell me they played by the rules. The rules weren't the same back then. And they were all trying to escape terrible things back in their homelands. And they, too, would have moved heaven and earth to come here if they'd been in the position that some people in Central America are in right now. We don't need mass deportations. We don't need mass camps. We need immigrants. We need immigrants in this country badly. We need immigration reform. And that's something that Republicans purposefully killed for no good reason. They're not going to get a better deal next year. It doesn't matter who's in control. Unless somebody's got 60 Senate votes to break a filibuster, it's going to have to be a bipartisan deal. And they had a chance to have that, and they blew it. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance gave his acceptance speech as the vice presidential nominee. J.D. Vance's ascension to the ticket is somewhat personal for me. I grew up poor, like he did. I don't look back and spit on the ground of my old neighborhoods. I see where I was fortunate, thanks not only to my hard work and family support, but the government investments that allowed me to have a good education, food, housing, safety, opportunity. But you really didn't learn that kind of appreciation from J.D. Vance in his speech. His speech reportedly was about as shallow as his book. For a guy who knew enough to write about and speak last night about how the rich and the powerful make decisions that ruin the working class, He seems to lack the awareness that he's now owned by one of the rich and powerful in his ongoing quest to be one of them himself. And when you walk among them, you adopt their mindset that everything is the fault of the poor. He's forgotten his roots, plain and simple. Now, look, folks, some folks can climb out of and break that circle of poverty. Not everybody can. That's not making excuses for the chronically poor, by the way. It's recognition that if you didn't get a good start in life, you're in trouble. A good start, a loving family, a good school, being surrounded by people with a work ethic. That good start is what becomes your bootstraps. And then you take it from there. But you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps if they don't exist. Good public officials understand that. They know that it's cheaper for taxpayers to pay for a few scholarships, food stamps, economic development projects. All of that is less expensive than a lifetime in prison, more police, more institutions, and so on. J.D. Vance grew up poor, but not without the makings of those bootstraps. He had a grandma who cared. He had a grandpa with a union job. And yet here he is now as a United States Senator attacking the things that enabled his grandparents to give him a chance to get out of Appalachia. He'd rather keep women just like his mother tied down in poverty, unable to get the health care they need, unable to escape physical abuse, unable to afford an education. J.D. Vance likes to talk about his roots, but he has lost touch with them. His roots to him are a political prop. To blame the poor for being poor and to say that cutting the social contract is some kind of tough love when there's no love involved in his political ideology at all. Only opportunity for himself, only power, only a willingness to kiss somebody's behind to become a running mate to someone that he once called America's Hitler. Or maybe he always admired Trump and was just lying to his friends. I wouldn't put it past him, given what we've learned about J.D. Vance so far. We'll talk to Scott Ross from Panther Arena at the Republican National Convention coming up in a bit, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Thursday morning when you're here up north. Gregory, give me a thumbs up if you're hearing me during the commercial break here. Okay, you were listening to the commercials. That's good. And Scott Ross joins us now from Panther Arena, where he is spending Wednesday evening on day 3 of proceedings. Mr. Ross, how are you?
Pat, great to talk to you. Yes, I indeed. I am here watching a giant screen that has, oh goodness, the Kellyanne Conway.
Oh,
the alternative facts
lady. Yeah. You know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing a photo that has been making the rounds on social media. Every convention has little placards, mass printed very quickly. Some of them sure say Trump, Vance, and some say Make America Strong Again. Here's the one I'm looking at right now that's been passed all around. All it says is mass deportation now. And I thought, well, is this coming from the Trump campaign? Is it coming from some fringe group? You zoom way in on it, and it says paid for by the Republican National Committee. Scott, I'm wondering what generation we're living in.
Well, it's ghoulish. I mean, but I think it's what we've seen. We've seen, a party that's completely and totally held hostage by racism, corruption, and and extremism. And that is what we have gotten all 3 days of this convention. I point out that Trump and the Republicans promised unity, but they have put on what I consider to be the most divisive national convention I've seen, Democratic or Republican, in my lifetime.
Oh, sure. But it's tough to figure out, which is the more extreme part of it. Is it the deportations part? Is it the threat to democracy part? And I feel like in choosing JD Vance, to give the Wednesday night speech as the VP nominee, they're kind of getting all of the extremism rolled into one, and yet they somehow think he can still keep that hillbilly elegy veneer of he's an aw shucks country boy. Is that going to play?
I don't think so, because again, who is he? He is an author, a Yale law graduate, and a guy who, in his own book, in his own words, said that the way he was able to survive was because he lived with his grandparents, his grandfather, who had a union job and union benefits. And he has led the charge with Republicans in the very short time he's been in the Senate to stand in the way of any progress when it comes to unions, and to literally do everything he can to take away their rights and their power, because he is in the pocket of guys like Peter Thiel, the gazillionaire, who put $15 million into his first race, which is why he's here in the first place. Elon Musk. These are the two guys who wanted Trump to put Vance on the ticket, and Vance is on the ticket.
And there he is. And now I'm not going to get into what's happening at the Democratic ticket. Things are just moving too fast. You just had the president's COVID diagnosis. You've got polling going left and right. We're just not going to do that here. Since the signs about mass deportation were put up by the RNC, I just want you to think as somebody with the DNC, and you see the extreme overconfidence coming out of the Milwaukee convention among Republicans. What are your first messaging moves to whatever counts for swing voters out there these days? What do you tell them coming out of the Republican convention during this lull before the Democratic one?
Well, there's a reason why Republicans are assaulting the Constitution, because they want to take away people's rights. They've shown that with taking away abortion rights. They've shown that with attacking unions. They've shown that with attacking, a whole slew of folks. And again, with the end result of they have put one person, Trump, above the law. We live in America that I know was that nobody is above the law. A rigged Trump Supreme Court made Trump above the law. It's disgusting. The guy's got 34 felony convictions, and they're, acting as though it's a badge of honor rather than a disgrace.
Right. They're embracing that. And certainly Democrats will be going after that. Meanwhile, in President Biden or the Biden-Harris administration or Democrats, whatever you want to call it, you have what is, without argument, the most productive legislative agenda that is in the process of being put into action. We can spend a lot of time debating whether the Biden White House did enough over the past 2 years to trumpet that, but that's academic. What needs to be done on the good news front of things? That, okay, forget everything we just said about Republicans. Here's what you need to know about Democrats could still get done if given a chance this November.
Well, and again, I think that's why President Biden has run for re-election, because he did a great job, but there's more work to do. But this is a guy who, after we lost 3 million jobs under Trump, including 83,000 in the state of Wisconsin, we've gained 15 million jobs under President Biden, including 189,000 in the state of Wisconsin. We've invested $7 billion in infrastructure here in the state of Wisconsin because of the president's work. We've increased 21 million more people have access to healthcare because of the work President Biden did. And 4.75 million people have had their student loans forgiven or qualified for public service loan forgiveness under the plans and the execution of those plans by President Biden. And I don't think it's it's par for the course that Trump and his Supreme Court have gotten in the way of anything that tries to protect workers, anything that tries to protect people over profits. And 30 million more people could be getting support for their student loans if the Supreme Court hadn't done the will of the Republicans and undone and declared his acts unconstitutional.
Now, somewhere on the typical voters list, somewhere beyond like item number 7,200, is the fact that a Democratic U.S. Senator from New Jersey is now a convicted felon as well. But I wonder if there shouldn't be more said about how Democrats did not circle the wagons around Bob Menendez. they said, you're corrupt, you have to go. That's a big difference with the Republican Party. Or are only a few, people like you and I going to care about this and nobody else is?
I mean, I just think that some things, again, I used to say that like good policy does not necessarily mean good campaign stuff. Some things just don't work. But I do think the contrast works of just how, the Democrats immediately, I mean, there were Senator Fetterman was calling for his expulsion, told him to called for him to be off committees from day one. Democrats reject corruption because corruption's wrong. It sends the wrong message and it's just wrong. Whereas Republicans are doing everything they can to bend over to turn, this would-be dictator into a forever dictator.
And yet I'm listening to you and Bill McCoshen talking for Wisconsin Public TV, and McCoshen, among others, is saying that this is all being blown up, that there is no actual threat to democracy. And Scott, I was watching it in disbelief in how you ask people to reject what their own eyes were telling them and what their own ears were hearing.
Well, I guess you could ask the 5 law enforcement officers who died after January 6th. They're the 140 law enforcement officers who were injured because of their January 6th terrorist insurrection. We ask the representatives who were hiding behind desks, as they were directed to do. Ask Josh Hawley, who we saw scurrying through the Capitol, running as fast as, if I ran that fast, I would have finished the Ironman a whole lot quicker. That's for sure. Again, that's the difference between the two sides. We have we don't have a divide. We live in two alternative universes. One where decency is seen as some sort of a weakness by this Republican team are running things. The good news, again, is that the people are on our side when it comes to the issues. People are on Democrats' side. Over and over again, we've seen since Trump was elected in the state of Wisconsin, 17 of 19 statewide elections, Democrats have won. And a lot of those were even before, the ending of Roe versus Wade,
Right.
which continues to be toxic for Republicans. And what is their solution to it? They just put in the most extreme anti-abortion U.S. senator in the entire Senate. I would say he was the most unqualified, but Ron Johnson still is in the Senate, so I can't say that.
No, and that's where we'll have to leave it. Scott Ross reporting from Panther Arena. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the big show. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds good, Pat.
We'll be back with more after this. You're Up North. Thursday morning, 6:34 on Up North News Radio, and Joe Zepecki is here with us now, right? Yeah, you're here now, and is going to talk about the Republican National Convention and whatever else is on our minds for this morning. Joe, how are you?
And what a convention it has been.
Yeah, it's been different. We always knew it was going to be different. You've been down there near the site. What did you glean from the folks that you saw, and here's that word for 2024, vibe, the vibe that you got over there?
So the vibe for me was very weird. This is the first national political convention I've been to of either party. I did not go into Fiserv, but on Monday morning, I made it as far as Radio Row inside Panther Arena, kind of the media center just south of Fiserv. And I will say it was very weird. It was like invading another planet or something, because despite the horrific event over the weekend and the failed assassination attempt, and this talk of a new tone, there you are walking past these right-wing talkers and podcasters and satellite shows, and they're doing all of the greatest hits of the darkest corners of QAnon and the ultra MAGA right, from transgender conspiracy theories to totally unfounded, baseless accusations about undocumented immigrants voting in elections. And so it was probably the physically most proximate to the fever swamp that I have been, and it didn't feel great. It didn't feel great.
It did. At any point, did you feel like maybe you got assaulted? And by that, I mean, did you get hip checked by Derek Van Orden or anybody else for that matter?
No.
Okay.
And I can't wait to see the video, because the notion of a former Navy SEAL being assaulted by a tiny woman wearing pink is just too rich and preposterous to be exactly the way it's been described. I also do want to add, I was swimming in the fever swamps. And there were also Republicans doing and saying the right things. I had actually an opportunity to appear on another show with one of our Republican congressmen, Brian Stile from the 1st District. He's being challenged by former state lawmaker and Secretary of Revenue, Peter Barca. Peter's great. I hope Peter wins that race. And Congressman Stile was completely appropriate, said all the right things, struck the right notes in sort of the first day, first hours of the convention, coming very quickly on the heels of what happened in Pennsylvania. And I thought he made an important point, which is we can lower the rhetoric. We can tone down some of the crazy talk and make it about the policy, because there are very different visions for this country between the two parties and very different things that they want to do. And so I appreciated that from him. And I don't want to lump in everybody as doing the transgender conspiracy nonsense, because it's not everybody.
No, it's not everybody, but I've also made clear this week, I'm not giving a pass to people who are now crying, we need to tone it down, we need to turn down the temperature. And these were the folks who were bringing the heat in the first place. And that includes, frankly, the hypocrisy about, decrying an assassination attempt from the people who wear AR-15 lapel pins, on the floors of Congress. And so there was this talk of, having things be calmer, and will former President Trump tonight have a calmer speech? And my view all week has been, where have you been for these past many years? There's going to be no instant metamorphosis where Trump and the MAGA movement suddenly become, less angry, annoying, divisive, whatever. And yet somehow too many people in media circles, especially, just lap it up.
I'm going to defend them. I don't think they're lapping it up. I think they genuinely want it to happen. And the human mind and the human heart has an inclination towards wanting to believe things that make life better. Our life would be better if the specter of political violence was not so great. If much of political violence had not been normalized in the last 8, 9, 10 years. I mean, we have seen assassination attempts against members of Congress. We have seen bomb makers arrested in vans down in Florida. We have seen now convicted criminals, beat up police officers at the United States Capitol trying to stop the certification of a free and fair election. So this is not out of nowhere. And I understand everyone who wants us to try to figure out a way to dial down the rhetoric. There's a lot more work to do on the right to lower that rhetoric and to change that tone than there is on the left. And maybe that's the segue into J.D. Vance and the actual news out of the convention, because 48 hours after nearly losing his life, former President Trump chose someone who, out of everyone in public life, who was very responsible and measured and appropriate in the immediate aftermath of the assassination attempt, J.D. Vance was probably the least responsible. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is actually really, really easy and straightforward after an incident like that to say and do the right thing, and to just say, thank God former President Trump is okay. Our hearts go out to the family of the heroic firefighter who lost his life trying to save his family, doing nothing more than trying to engage civically in his community and support a political candidate of his choosing. The fact that you can go and do that and not go home should mortify all of us and should remind us that we have to be responsible. And to, in that moment, go as far as J.D. Vance did is irresponsible. It is pretty reprehensible. And I don't expect that he is ever going to apologize for it. But if he did, it would be a start. And that is one of the differences. Has Joe Biden occasionally gone a little too far in his language? Did he put him in a bullseye in a private conversation, phone call with donors? Yeah. And is that the same thing as standing behind the podium and saying you're going to pardon January 6th criminals? No, it's not. But you know what Joe Biden did when he got called out on it by Lester Holt on Monday? He said, I shouldn't have used that language. That's leadership. That's growth. And that's recognizing that everyone does have a role to play.
I don't know. That to me is also the double standard that is applied way too often, that that Democrats can't even pretend to use aggressive language, and suddenly they're the bad guys, whereas Republicans do, and they're the tough party, and they don't get called on it nearly enough. And I'm not saying it's ever going to change. I just don't think it gets pointed out enough.
This is maybe the football coach in me, but what we tell the young men and sometimes women we coach in football is, you don't hold yourself to anybody else's standard. Set the standard yourself.
Sure. Well, I know where I would like the standard to be for the Democratic Party in this day and age, and that's a discussion we'll have to have another time. But I want to switch gears a bit with the selection of J.D. Vance and talk about how do we talk about democracy and the very real threat to democracy, and this talking point that's come up this week that Trump can't possibly be thought of as a threat to democracy, that people are talking about January 6th again being overblown. I get that the threat to democracy is not as big to many voters as pocketbook issues, maybe social issues, but I just don't like the fact that the point that Trump and Trumpism isn't a threat to democracy. Look how this process is unfolding in the convention, is gaining traction when it frankly couldn't be farther from the truth. It may not be people's most important issue, Joe. It's still very much an issue.
It is. And there's, in my view, nothing more patriotic than engaging in civic and political debate and trying to win the argument and win elections to reflect the will of the people. And in order to do that, you have to be factual. You have to be true. And here is the reality of Senator J.D. Vance. He has said publicly that he would have done what Mike Pence refused to do. It's probably one of the big reasons that Trump picked him. On January 6th, had J.D. Vance been vice president, he would not have certified the election, which would have meant absolute chaos, no transfer of power, that a coup d'etat would have been executed in this country. And it is not me suggesting that J.D. Vance might do that down the road. He is telling us that if he had been in Mike Pence's shoes, he would have acted differently. That stands in stark contrast to the things that Democrats like Joe Biden and Tammy Baldwin are working on in the democracy space, where yesterday was actually 4 years since we lost the late, great Representative John Lewis, who was bloodied crossing that bridge in Selma and was one of the absolute icons of the civil rights movement throughout his life. Today, there are two pieces of legislation in Congress that have been introduced, co-sponsored by Tammy Baldwin in both cases, that try to live up to his legacy: the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Those are pieces of legislation, bills, potential laws for this country that would make our democracy better, more inclusive, make our elections more secure and safer by supporting the people who administer them, by ensuring there are basic rules of the road about when you can vote and how you can vote, getting the money out of politics so that people can restore a little bit of trust and confidence. That is the choice, or among the choices that people have to wrestle with as they think about, when we say Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are a threat to democracy, what do we mean? And where is Joe Biden on that? That is among the differences. Democrats are talking about concrete measures to strengthen our democracy, and Republicans aren't. They are back to already readying lawsuits to contest the results of the election if they don't win. This was lost because of what happened in Pennsylvania on Saturday. But Saturday morning, there was great reporting from the New York Times about how the Trump team felt like they had, these are my words, not the New York Times's, but basically describing it as like, if 2020 was the Raptors testing the fences in Jurassic Park, now they know how to get out of the cage and like actually execute a strategy to steal an election.
Yeah.
That should be terrifying. And we should understand that that's the difference.
For a lot of folks, Jurassic Park was just a movie show, and that what's happening in the here and now couldn't possibly happen, which again sounds like something out of Jurassic Park.
It is happening. And that's what I would remind people is We really did see women in this country lose a constitutionally protected right that they had for half a century. The Dobbs decision overturned Roe v. Wade. It's gone. You want to codify Roe? You want to restore it? You've got to vote one way. The right to access IVF, if you want to start a family, is under attack from the right in this country. They tried it in Alabama. Democrats in Washington said, oh my gosh, this is too far. We have to codify protections to IVF so that loving parents who want to start a family can do that. And as it was brought to the floor of the United States Senate, Senate Republicans, including J.D. Vance, blocked it. It's happening. It's not your imagination. It's not crazy people on the radio. Go read a newspaper. The Associated Press, Reuters, all of these trusted institutions can explain to you how Republicans blocked that bill that would have protected IVF. That has an impact on people. We look at Project 2025. This is not a figment of the left's imagination. It is an actual, honest to God, 900-page playbook that you can be sure Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, if given the opportunity, will enact. And their administration would be stacked with people who had a hand in writing it and believe in a vision of America that is unrecognizable. I mean, it is crazy, but go read it for yourself. Everything from banning pornography to preventing mifepristone from being prescribed to firing civil servants without cause. It is a radical reshaping of the American system of government that we, the people, do not want. We want our government to work better. We don't want to blow it up like Project 2025 would.
In a different time, in a different place, the biggest worry we would have this week is the sadness of watching Corbin Burns start the All-Star game in a Baltimore Orioles hat instead of a Milwaukee Brewers hat. This has just not been a typical convention week, Joe Zepecki.
These are not typical times, but we're going to get through them together, friends. Hang in there.
God bless you for it. Joe Zepecki, thank you so much. Have a great start to the weekend.
You too.
We will have today's history lesson coming up in just a moment. This is Up North News Radio from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. Time for today's history lesson, and it starts with happy birthday wishes to Martha Reeves. Martha Reeves in the Vandal is 83 years old today. Happy birthday to her. I'm reminded, I don't remember if it was a year or 2 years ago on Martha Reeves' birthday, Aaron Zomers was sitting in the producer chair and told me about a silent version of Dancing in the Street. Have you seen this? Do you know what I'm talking about, Greg?
Yeah.
For you have to be mindful that this was remade by Mick Jagger and David Bowie in the 1980s. And in the video, they're dancing like crazy. They're dancing and they're singing and they're dressed all flashy. But somebody reimagined it so you see them, but it's as if there's no music playing. And all you hear is the shoes are shuffling and they're kind of whispering the words, like trying to lip sync along to it. It's hilarious. Look up I'd play it here, but it's a silent version. You wouldn't get as much out of it. Silent version, dancing in the street. You can play a little bit if you want. Yeah, absolutely. Give a taste. They're going down the street right now. Dancing.
They have
a little bit more dancing.
A little more dancing, and then Mick Jagger it's literally like it's the entire song. And now what they've done is they've done other videos where like it's the Who playing and squeaking shoes and like plunking guitars and
it's so good. So do yourself a favor, look that up. Let's see. So Martha Reeves 83 today. Dion DiMucci is 85 years old today. The Bronx native had several hits in the early 60s, including well, he sings about Runaround Sue, which, by the way, on that same album, he was the Wanderer. So, I mean, pot kettle black. Anyway, actor James Brolin is 84 years old today. So, a lot of good folks in their early 80s. Let's see. Singer Ryan Cabrera has a birthday today. He's 42. He's had several hits. One of the slower ones is one of my favorites.
Ooh, that is some late 90s, early 2000s hair right there, Mr. Ryan Cabrera.
It's a very nice song, though. True is the name of that one. Actor Vin Diesel is 57. Actress Kristen Bell is 44. And I'll just never get tired of the look on her face as she realizes this is the bad place.
I love that show so much.
I think Ted Lasso is the only more recent show. I think prior to that, The Good Place was the last show I made sure to watch cover to cover.
Yeah.
Start to finish, and completely worth it all the way through. Some series finales disappoint. This one does not. It's very poignant.
If you want some real good, like, sweet feelings, also go to YouTube, look up Kristen Bell, Craig Ferguson. When she was a guest on his show, when he was a late night talk show host, it was the best relationship. You want to be like, can you guys just be, I mean, you're both married, can you just be married to each other too? You guys seem like best friends. Like they love each other truly.
Besties. Not nearly enough of that in Tinseltown. Brenda Lee had the number one hit this day in 1960, a song she recorded when she was just 15 years old.
I'm sorry, so sorry.
So when people are like, she does Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, and she's still performing. Well, yeah, she was 15, 16 when these songs were big hits. So
Dynamite when she was like 12.
Yeah, she's had a big, long, and well-deserved career. NSYNC got a big boost in the U.S. this day in 1998 when their concert special aired on the Disney Channel. They weren't supposed to air. Their boy band rivals, the Backstreet Boys, backed out because one member of their group needed surgery. And NSYNC was kind of languishing on the charts with I Want You Back. But because of that Disney special preemption, the rest is history. In 1976, the Summer Olympics were underway in Montreal, and we all got real sick of hearing this tune, but not sick of the gymnast who inspired it.
Wait.
No, we're not watching The Young and the Restless. This is a song that got renamed as Nadia's theme. Because on this day in 1976, Romania's Nadia Comaneci became the first person in Olympic history to score a perfect 10 in gymnastics. Greg still looks confused by this.
It's so depressing.
It was beautiful when you put all of her moves to it. By the way, she did not perform to this. She performed to something totally different. This was some TV producer that put a highlight reel together. Yeah. And everybody was like, what's that song? Oh, that song is great. And the song actually went up the charts for a short time in 1976. And then Young and the Restless took it. You thought that song was annoying. Wait till you see what the big hit of 1992 was on this day by Miley Cyrus's dad.
Don't tell my heart, my achy, breaky heart. I just don't think he'd understand.
Now, of course, Billy Ray Cyrus, that was a #1 hit on the country charts. On this day in 1992, it reached its peak on the Billboard Hot 100, getting as high as #4. On this day in 2008, the last play at Shea Stadium, was shut down with Billy Joel playing the very final concert, the final show before it was torn down and became, what is it now, Citi Field or something like that for the New York Mets.
Yeah.
In the Up North News daily newsletter, I did not know until I saw it this very morning, Mr. Bach, that it was on this day, July 18th, 1984, 40 years ago today, that George and Ruth and Craig and Lee Culver opened their first family restaurant, Culver's Frozen Custard and Butter Burgers in Sauk City. Happy birthday, Culver's. 40 years old today.
Birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to them.
Well, it's one thing to open up like one family restaurant. I mean, that's a big deal in itself.
Yeah.
They now have more than 900 locations across the country. So whatever they did it right.
Yeah, we went to Georgia this year, and I saw a sign for a Culver's. I'm like, what?
So good on them. Christina puts more about the Culver's anniversary in the daily newsletter. Sign up at UpNorthNewsWI.com. This is National Nelson Mandela Day, the anniversary of his birth. National Dapper Your Data Day, which is, I guess, a term to maybe change your passwords, make your data more private. Be aware of your data privacy, much like you should be aware of lasagna, because this is the 18th day of Lasagna Awareness Month. This is also National Sour Candy Day and National Caviar Day, something you either consider a delicacy or, ew, fish eggs. So much more ahead.
Garnish.
In the second hour of Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network.
I moved to Arkansas.
Morning, Brittany.
Good morning.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Good morning. Welcome back to Up North News Radio, unabashedly Wisconsin, brought to you by Courier Newsroom and carried by our friends on the Civic Media Radio Network. 7:06. Nice to have you here on this Thursday morning, July 18th. Busy hour ahead. We will hear shortly from Richard Trent. He is the new National Executive Director of the Main Street Alliance, a nationwide group giving voice to small business owners who frankly have gotten tired of big business doing all the lobbying in Washington and in Madison and doing things that are not necessarily good for small businesses. It's Thursday, so we have our Women Win Wisconsin segment with our friends from Motherhood for Good. So Nicole Slavin and Kate Duffy will be here talking to State Senate candidate Kelly Peterson coming up. And Luke Mathers will join us as well. He's had a very busy week, not just with the convention, but with a 3rd Congressional District candidate forum among the 3 Democrats squaring off next month, looking for the chance to run against Congressman Derek Van Orden. So he'll tell us more about how you can access this week's forum that was held in Eau Claire. But right now at 7:07, it's time to get an update on the forecast, and meteorologist Brittany Merlot is here. And like I mentioned, Brittany, to have long sleeves, and have the windows open and have it be this, to have 40s in July is really something. And I don't know that a lot of people complain. I mean, yes, obviously some it's too cold, but for others, this is probably a nice little break. Where do you come down on this?
Oh, I am loving every second of it. Not going to lie. I also had long sleeves on earlier, but I've already ripped those off. I'm embracing the chill.
What are you, an all-star wrestler? I've ripped the sleeves off. I'm getting into the ring.
Oh, yeah. I love 40-degree weather.
Wisconsin strong. Yeah.
All right. So Brittany's already heating up for the day here to tell us, do we stay this way for very long?
Oh, goodness. We have a beautiful day ahead of us, honestly. Comfortable temperatures, no mugginess, no humidity sneaking in there. Winds are still pulling out of the north. They'll be calmer today. A lot more sunshine out there, especially central Wisconsin. Didn't see too much of that sun yesterday. You will today. Bright and beautiful, mid-70s statewide. We're all hitting those temperatures as this high-pressure system sits over us. And tomorrow, we have the same thing. We're going to be into those mid to upper 70s. And these overnight lows tonight into the low 50s, and by tomorrow, upper 50s. So still feeling very refreshed and cool. You can keep that AC off, open those windows, and enjoy the day.
Yeah, bright and beautiful. I like that. From Rob, good morning from Tigerton. It's sunny and 54 degrees. Yesterday, it felt like fall while mowing by Highway 45. Lots of traffic heading south to Oshkosh and the EAA that starts on Monday. I've never been to the EAA. Have you?
Really?
Yeah.
What?
I'm
Yes.
over on this side of the state, and
You got it.
yeah.
Oh, I
You
feel
gotta
like
go.
you'd be great there, like broadcasting from the EAA. That'd be fun to listen to you.
I guess I wouldn't even know what to expect. I'm like, all right, there's
Planes.
Well, yeah,
Lots of
plane.
planes.
And obviously it's a lot more to it, but I have no concept of it because I haven't
But
gone yet.
Do you know what's even more important than the EAA starting? And this
What?
is for Brittany. This is for Brittany.
What?
Twisters comes out tomorrow.
Yes, it does. Oh my gosh. Weather nerds unite. We're all excited about this release. Yes, it is tomorrow night. Wonder if it's going to be sold out. We'll see how that goes.
I doubt it.
I doubt it because
come
there's a
on.
whole lot of people that will want nothing to do with that because they already have tornado nightmares anytime there's a clap of thunder. And it, near as I know, doesn't have Helen Hunt in it. So, I mean,
Nope.
I don't
True.
Oh,
it
that
just-
Glenn Powell, he's real easy on the eyes. If you know what I'm talking about. What up?
I do.
What
I
up?
do.
if you say so. I also don't know if this isn't a sequel. This is just
No.
like another tornado movie, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I understand, there's not even mentions of the old movie. It's just a new.
It's just a new movie about tornadoes. Okay.
weather.
About
I
weather.
knew they couldn't do it probably better. So
No,
they're not
that
trying
one-
to replace it.
Right. That one was a classic. Although perhaps for me, the most surprising thing about this movie coming out was that a Milwaukee area meteorologist tweeted yesterday, should I have watched the first one before going to see the second one?
What?
And
What?
the abuse she got for being a meteorologist who's never seen the original Twister was, none of it was mean. It was just like a whole collective, what? Are you
Now,
kidding?
The thing is, I don't know how old she is. There
It doesn't
is
matter.
somebody. Well,
Doesn't
there
matter.
is
She has a
some-
TV. Yeah, it's
There is something. Well, that's the thing is, I think Twister, the original, is much better in the theater because you get the full theater experience. When you watch it on television, it's fine, but I saw it in the theater, and I remember at one point thinking, I feel like the ceiling is going to get ripped off the building because it was so, you just felt every moment of it. So if you didn't see it in the theater, I get why you wouldn't want to maybe watch it on the TV.
I guess we had a very small screen alternative to that. We were on a family vacation in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and we got this little tiny cabin, and then we were going to go horse riding and go on some trails and parks and things like that. Well, like the second or third night we were there, severe weather rolls through, and the TV in there, little tiny TV, it only gets one channel. What do you think they're playing? They're playing Twister. The Twister,
Nice.
yeah. On whatever channel this was. I don't know if it was a cable channel, but whatever it was. It was like, this is not great programming right here, you know? But somehow we managed to make it through. But yeah, it still haunts some people to this day. But Brittany, what does it come out today or tomorrow? Tomorrow, right?
I think it's tomorrow. Yep, tomorrow.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we will be expecting make some time for a full movie review first thing Monday
absolutely.
morning.
Will
All
do.
Sounds good.
Merlot at the movies.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes, with a little glass of wine.
And your only assignment's ever when it's a weather-based film. So you're going to be reporting once every 7 years.
Perfect.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.
You can join the show anytime here at 855-75-CIVIC. You can call or text. You can also send us an email, radio@upnorthnewswi.com. If you're watching the show on Facebook or YouTube, you can put a question or some feedback in the comment section, and we might show it here. And that's what we're going to do with a few different comments that came in from Brandon. Don't know if he's new to the program or not, but as we talked about the Republican convention and its theme yesterday of mass deportations and what that would do to the American workforce and the difference between now and 100 years ago when, a lot of our families arrived in this country. Brandon writes, quote, "So it's racist to want a legal immigration system? You realize the first act of each migrant has been to break the law, so that's okay?" All right, Brandon. No, none of that is what we said. A legal immigration system is exactly what we need. A legal reformed immigration system is what we should have had, except that Donald Trump, and only Donald Trump, told congressional Republicans who had worked out the bipartisan deal he insisted on, then rejected the deal. Trump told them to kill their own deal and let the problems continue to fester. So no, there's no racism involved in this at all. We all actually want reform. The racism might come in the form of, referring to certain countries as S-hole countries and wondering why don't we have more immigrants from Norway and other predominantly white European countries, but we don't have to dwell on that part. As far as the act of each migrant being to break the law, again, let's talk about criminal intent for a moment and what your great-grandparents would have done in the same circumstances. It was a whole different system back then, but they too were fleeing persecution, war, poverty, starvation, and the things they would have done to make sure that, say, your grandmother as an infant could have a better life are completely on par with what's happening today. We need immigration reform. He goes on to write, "Who do you think pays for those student loans?" referencing our discussion with Scott Ross in our last hour from the Republican convention. A loan is a contract. Don't sign the contract if you intend to break it. The loan doesn't just go away. Taxpayers pay it. Get real. Brandon, here's what's real. What's real is the taxpayers don't pay for it. The loan, if they have, under the proposals that were set up by the Biden administration, deals with the interest that would have been paid. These are folks who have long since paid the principal, but because of the terms of that contract that they felt they had no other choice but to sign to get an education and break a cycle of poverty, called for interest payments that turned out to be whoppers, far beyond what the principal was. But they've paid the principal, or the equivalent of it, and they're still paying the interest. The taxpayer loses nothing on this. The loan is a contract. No student is saying, oh, I'm going to sign this and then I demand that you break it. This is something that comes up from people like Scott Ross, people like Joe Biden, people like Pat Kreitlow, who got all kinds of student grants and loans to go to college and escape a cycle of poverty, who have then more than paid back what we got in loans in terms of higher incomes as a result of the education that we got. Canceling student loan debt is an economic development project that is good in every local economy that it's done in. Because when you cancel, let's say, your neighbor's student loan debt, that's now money that's no longer being sent to a bank or to Wall Street someplace. This is something that is immediately put right back into work as they become homeowners instead of renters, as they buy a new car from the new car dealer or get a new washer and dryer from the local store, rather than, again, trying to make do with the old one for as long as they can. This is good economic sense, but again, there's a certain political party that sees a need to turn this into a much more divisive issue and also speaks on behalf of financiers and others who only stand to profit if more and more Americans are kept in debt. And Brandon finally concludes, yes, please bring up January 6th. Let's see all the documents. I'll wait. Scott's a hack. Unreal. Brandon, yes, we will continue to bring up January 6th. And in terms of let's see all the documents, I'd say let's see all the text messages. Let's see all the text messages that the Secret Service deleted from that day. There's a lot we'd like to know about it because it wouldn't prove that January 6th was some kind of an inside job, but perhaps would get even deeper into what certain people in positions of power said and did on that particular day. We'd all like to find that out. Although, first things first, I'd like to find out more about this past weekend. First off, what is with that mattress-sized bandage on Trump's ear? You will not find a doctor that says that is a standard bandage for a wound on an ear like that. Why haven't we had a single medical briefing? I'm sure everything is fine, but why wouldn't you at least say so and have a doctor out there? There's a lot of questions about presidential candidates' health, and I'd like some of them answered from the Trump side of things for once. 7:19, coming up next, Richard Trent, the new National Executive Director for the Main Street Alliance from the Milwaukee Convention, talks to us. Wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Thursday morning, when you're here, you're up north. We'll be right back. And joining us now is Richard Trent, the new Executive Director for the Main Street Alliance. Richard, hello. Welcome to Up North News Radio. Thank you for being here.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me.
Now, it's been a little while since we've had guests from Main Street Alliance here. So let's start with a little reset because I used to have a lot to say about it as something that was basically the antithesis to Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, in that this sounded much more like the voice of small business Wisconsin. Is that still a good way to describe it?
That's absolutely the way to describe it. We recognize at Main Street Alliance that small business is still the beating heart of the American economy. So we do everything in our power to uplift the voices of local entrepreneurs that are strengthening our communities, so that they're the ones that are actually shaping the policy for Main Street. So super excited to spread that message throughout one of our most robust member networks here in Wisconsin.
And when we talk about that advocacy on behalf of small businesses, as was pointed out in the announcement that let us know that you were taking over executive director, there are things that are threatening small businesses, writ large nowadays. There's increasing monopoly power from the big boys. There's certainly a more regressive tax structure that's been out there, and also a deterioration of the care economy. And that's the one I really want to hone in on, because it always strikes me that small business owners are the ones who understand the care economy way better than some mega corporations' HR department, and that groups like yours have a vested interest in making sure that the care economy is appreciated on behalf of your employees, which I can only imagine is good for every one of your members and their bottom line.
Absolutely. And I feel like we're really just starting to connect the dots between what a strong care economy means for the sustainability of small businesses. But we were super grateful to be a part of the paid leave push in Minnesota last year. And we're hoping to notch similar policy wins across the rest of our member network states. But the fact of the matter is that there's a big showdown, I guess you could say, looming, especially around healthcare, affordable healthcare for small business owners and American citizens, with the expiration of the premium tax credits. So these are the tax credits that have been a part of the Affordable Care Act for as long as it's been in existence, over a decade. That was re-upped during the pandemic, and has been keeping premiums low for American citizens for a while now. They're slated to expire next year, and it's going to be a part of this larger tax debate between Democrats and Republicans. So just to put things in perspective, if those premium tax credits expire, a 60-year-old couple making around $80,000 a year can expect to pay $17,500 more in healthcare costs annually. That's not me misspeaking. It's literally $17,000 on the line for working class families, which is unacceptable. And a lot of our members know that when you have to incur those sorts of expenses, it can totally throw your business operations out of whack. So we're open to spread that message. We're trying to hear what folks at the RNC have to say about that. But looking forward to hearing some of the local entrepreneurs here weigh in.
I would say that if there was going to be inroads made with something like the Republican convention, it would be the many of them that are small business owners or partners or investors in some way, shape, or form, who maybe have been against things like, an increase in the minimum wage, because it's all in the name of free markets and competition, but that maybe they have now seen enough. They've seen that small businesses cannot compete with big corporations who are always hiding behind that phrase, fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. And that these are folks that actually want to care for their employees as well as make a profit. Am I being a little are my glasses a little too rose colored, or do you feel like you can make some connections at this Republican convention?
So I think that you see some promising things bubbling up when you hear someone like Representative Matt Gaetz endorse FTC Chair Lena Khan's super aggressive antitrust strategy. Basically said that she's an inspiration to him, and he hopes that sort of antitrust enforcement continues even into what would possibly be a second Trump administration. I think that's because so many folks, Democrats, Republicans, have witnessed what actually happens on Main Street, which is you've got these massive corporations that come into our communities, drive down the prices so that small businesses nearby can't compete. And then once those businesses are out of the game, then they jack the prices back up. It's looting our Main Street economies. Republicans and Democrats can feel it. And so, yeah, I am optimistic that we can start to broker some sort of bipartisan collaboration, especially around antitrust enforcement and building agenda around that.
And then a little bit closer to home, Main Street Alliance also gets involved with legislative issues, obviously, and even tries to put a spotlight, in some particular legislative races where it seems like it's a key opportunity to, talk about a particular issue, a particular message. Is that going to be happening in Wisconsin at the legislative race level this year?
Absolutely. So we're doing just a big C3 push, educating Wisconsinites on what's at stake in this next election, and so we're excited to get voters connected to the larger message of just empowering small business, uplifting our local economies, and fighting for the policies that are really going to strengthen our neighborhoods.
That sounds great. And then finally, in the time we have left here, I wanted to learn a bit more about your own path coming to Main Street and what folks should know about you and what it is that you've been advocating for, and how you're going to help small business owners in your new position.
Well, right before this, I was organizing in DC around the revitalization of some national parks there in the city, and working with the business improvement district right around that park is when I really tapped into the power of small business messaging. I mean, when it comes to articulating the importance of certain policies, there is no better credible messenger than your average small business owner. And so once I tapped into that power, it became pretty clear, I think, what my next career moves would be, and was grateful for the opportunity to come at the helm here of Main Street Alliance. But I was raised by a small business owner. My mom owned a catering business when I was first born, and she was hustling until ultimately she ended up getting credentialed enough to move into kind of an administrative position, managing an engineering program for historically Black colleges in Atlanta, which speaks to the power of small business. It's like the upskilling engine of our economy. So the skills that folks that are working at a restaurant or brewery and local establishments, the skills that they take away from that experience inevitably contribute to the next kind of leveling up, however they see it in their own careers. And I think that's how we need to start talking about our small businesses, not just as these, end all, the final stops for a lot of folks, but a lot of folks are getting meaningful skills at the places where they work and taking it into their next journey.
And a lot of them feel like they're just too busy hustling to really pay attention to what's going on in Capitol buildings and things like that. And yet, if there's one thing we've learned about Main Street Alliance, it's that all these small businesses together can have a big voice if you just devote a little time to work with the group and hear from folks like you, Richard Trent, the new executive director. Richard, a real pleasure to talk to you. Good luck with the new position, and excited to talk to you next time you're coming through Wisconsin.
Absolutely. Wonderful to meet you.
That's Richard Trent again from the Main Street Alliance. And when we come back, our Women Win Wisconsin segment, we're going to get to meet Kelly Peterson, who's running for a state Senate seat in Northeast Wisconsin, along with Nicole Slavin and Kate Duffy from Motherhood for Good. That's all ahead on this Thursday morning on Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning, Kelly.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Good.
How goes the campaigning so far?
It's going well. It's going well. Been all over northeastern Wisconsin, talking to people, canvassing, knocking doors, making phone calls.
Doing all the right things.
All the right things, yes. And hearing some interesting feedback from moderate Republicans and independents. So it's hopeful.
Well, good. I mean, that's something that I know Kristen's talked about, is just a real change among some members of the public in Northeast Wisconsin, instead of just doing the same thing that they've been doing over and over again in terms of their voting habits. So here's hoping.
Here's hoping.
All right. Okay. So we've got a good long break here. We've got about 4 minutes until we're back. Kate and Nicole should be popping up in just a second. I'm going to go make some more notes and grab a little coffee and be back in just a bit.
Sounds great.
I'm going to tuck you back in the waiting room here. So don't worry, you didn't get cut off. It's just so you can make all the noise you want while we're in commercial.
Sounds good, Pat. Thank you.
You bet. Hey, Kate, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, I'm going through my graphics here, and did you? Some shows have just first names only. Some have first and last name. I usually keep last names in, if that's okay. Or
Yeah.
you said Kate there before?
Oh, when I just signed in?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Last name is totally fine.
Okay. All right.
And it's just me today from our crew anyway.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, then, in that case, let me pop this person in so you can say hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you too.
Wait, how have you two not met yet?
I don't
We need to
know.
get up to that area a little more often.
And I
Yeah.
need to come to your area a little more often.
Yeah, just maybe not this week, but any other time.
I do.
Let's see if yep, here's my Kelly doc. I've got the website on there. Yep, there's our topics. All right. Yeah, we're in good shape. All right, just over a minute till we come back in. So I'm going to pop you back in the waiting room for a little bit longer. Be right back.
Sounds good.
We're going to have our Women Win Wisconsin segment coming up in just a moment here on Up North News Radio on this Thursday morning, July 18th. First, I do want to cover a little bit of audience feedback here from some of our earlier topics. A text from Tom in West Allis on people critical of student loan debt forgiveness. Tom writes, so I'm assuming that these people who are completely against student loan forgiveness are also completely against voucher school programs, right? Also, let's see, we have feedback from Jack in Merrimack, who says, first off, nearly every country in the world that thinks of its future has free or very reasonable college for all who qualify. Jack goes on to say Republicans have cut support for public colleges and universities for decades, to the point that when I went to college, tuition was around $300 a semester, and my son's cost in the same public university system is about $10,000 annually. It's not hard to see how, with books and other necessary costs like a decent computer, it's easy to see how a student who works while going to school could end up with $50,000 in loans if their parents can't help them. Loans that should be lower with appropriate public support for public universities. And Jack is exactly right on that point, because again, it's not that it's a matter of state support is what has really dwindled. Of course, there's always loans. People will always lend you money with interest, but in terms of state support to help your own residents go to school, that has been on a 30-year downward streak. And that's something that completely needs to end if we're going to have a better public education system at both the pre-K-12 and into the college level. Which takes me to some other folks who support education in Wisconsin, and that's our Women Win Wisconsin segment with Kate Duffy from Motherhood for Good, and this week's guest, State Senate candidate in District 2 in Northeast Wisconsin, Kelly Peterson. Kelly, good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. The Inquisition will begin in just a moment. But first, we check in with Kate. Kate, how are you? How are things at Motherhood for Good?
Things are good. Things are busy. They're picking up. But, it's been a crazy couple weeks. I don't think that's going to slow down anytime soon. So yeah, we're hanging in there.
Well, I heard you over the commercial break about, getting to meet Kelly, maybe traveling a bit more. And you said, maybe not this week. And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe not till December. Because
and I meant just because I'm in Milwaukee, maybe visitors don't really want to come down this way this week. Although I think it's quieter than expected. So
yeah, it's been very quiet in many parts of town, which I suppose, that cuts both ways. But the circus will fold up its tent eventually, and everybody will move on to new things, including back to these legislative races, Kate. And Kate, I'm going to start with you, and then you can turn questions to Kelly here. But let's talk for a moment, for all the talk this week about the presidential race and the presidential convention and everything. We really do have to get back into the business of reminding folks just how important these legislative races are in Wisconsin.
So incredibly important. And we try to talk about that a lot, and especially when national politics has obviously so much going on. And I think it's really overwhelming for a lot of people. We keep telling people, we got to dig in and focus on these local elections, because when you kind of step up and help out there, your contributions can be so much more impactful, and vice versa. The people who are in these seats can make laws that are really, really impactful to your life, and rather quickly. So it's really good for folks to get involved in those local politics, which is why we're so excited to talk to Kelly today, who's running for a Senate seat here in Wisconsin in the state legislature. And so, Kelly, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know your background is not entirely in politics, but in an adjacent career path. So tell us a little bit about why you kind of decided to make the turn into politics, and what you're hoping to get out of gaining this seat.
Yeah, so it was really, I've been a journalist for more than 30 years, and I've met a lot of people, talked about a lot of issues, wrote about a lot of issues, met a lot of people. I'm also an educator. I teach at NWTC here in Northeastern Wisconsin, and I also teach through the University of North Dakota. My husband's background, he's a 20-year veteran from United States Air Force. And really what got me involved with politics, this is my first run in politics, but now I have a voice that I can echo a little louder wearing that hat, because I really got involved when the fall of Roe came. And honestly, I was going out and talking to people because I felt kind of alone. Is it just me? And as I was going out and talking to people in the community, it was a deep concern. And honestly, Kate and Pat, when I'm at the doors, when I'm on the phone, that's the main issue I'm hearing is reproductive rights, women's reproductive rights. Moderate Republicans and independents alike are telling me that same thing. It's not just the Democrats. And when I'm knocking doors and making phone calls, those are the questions I'm getting asked. And right now we're in legal limbo with where we are with Roe in terms of the court system. So that's really why I got involved. And and obviously for education and other key issues like childcare, things that I've written about for so many years, I can actually now, if elected, use my voice to make positive change.
Yeah, there are some folks very close to you here who understand that whole notion of a journalist running for office, because at some point, again, you're talking to so many people and hearing their concerns and realizing it doesn't always jive with what the talking heads are saying on basic cable. And right now, it seems like the talk, especially this week, is so detached from that reality. And that reality that I'm hearing from you is that the current stuff kind of ebbs and flows, but taking away somebody's right to control their own body, that's still very much a factor for them, even if the folks on TV are tired of talking about it.
Absolutely. And what's even more scary is if we look at what else are they going to take away from our rights, our freedom. Look, we've got contraception that's also at risk. What's next? So what I'm hearing from people are the issues. What else are they going to take away? We've worked so hard to get to where we are. Our state motto is the word forward. And Governor Tony Evers has done an amazing job getting us forward. Same with Senator Tammy Baldwin. But with the Republicans in office right now in the state of Wisconsin, just like Roe, they're taking us backwards, and we need to go forward. And that's the voice that I hope to echo going into Madison and Washington, D.C.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we need reform and protection and restoring rights at the federal level, but there's also things we can do right now at the state level. And you mentioned, it's not just abortion access, which, by the way, is a huge umbrella that, also is miscarriage management and, medical care and intervention for, fetal abnormalities and things like that. But it's also birth control, contraception, and even IVF, which obviously we're seeing stories out of the South, which we know is just going to continue to get further out to other states. And you also mentioned childcare and things like that. Again, although they need help at the federal level, there's things we can do at the state level. It is not impossible to pass laws to help our state right now, which is why it's so important that we get involved in these local elections. And it's nice to hear, because like you said, it's not just Democrats talking about abortion rights and abortion access. It's moderates, it's Republicans, it's bodily autonomy, and that's very, very important. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about, it's not just Madison and Milwaukee either. You're up in the northeastern part of the state, and you're still hearing that from people you go and talk to.
I am, Kate, and I'm in it's a red district. I've got so State Senate District 2 with the changing of the maps. I've got chunks of Outagamie County, Brown County, and Shawano County, Oconto, and Wapaka. I've also got 3 reservations now underneath or that are under State Senate District 2. But it's a very red area. And when I'm up in Shawano County, I'm hearing this. And again, these are not just Democrats that are telling me this. When I'm on the phone, and I call all over Wisconsin when I'm on the phone. It's not just my district. I'm hearing the same concerns, Kate.
Yeah. And flipping over to the other topic I just mentioned, childcare. I know that is important to you, and I would love to hear you talk a little bit about that too. I know Pat mentioned during the intro, he was talking to, student loans and the price of college, and that the average year at the particular college he was talking about is $10,000 a year. And the average cost of daycare now for one child in daycare is $17,000 a year. And it is now more expensive for people in all 50 states to have 2 kids in daycare. That is more expensive than their rent. What are you hearing when you talk to folks about the daycare crisis and the cost of that?
Oh, they're concerned. They're very concerned. And look, we have a record surplus here in Wisconsin. We could be putting funds into childcare. We could be doing that right now and starting to help these families, because with the childcare crisis, and it's big in State Senate District 2, this doesn't only impact the children and the parents, it impacts the economy. So it's a snowball effect. And I'm hearing just the other day, Kate, I was out knocking doors, and a woman answered the door, and she had two small children. And I said, "So, are you concerned about childcare?" She said, "That's why I'm home right now. I can't afford it." So
it comes back to what we heard in our previous segment from Richard Trent, the new National Executive Director for Main Street Alliance, that Main Street Alliance is a whole bunch of small business owners who they're not just focused on profit and loss. They don't have to deal with, share buybacks and things like that. He said specifically, they're invested in the care economy, and that it's a healthy care economy that gives them a healthy workforce and, frankly, probably a healthy customer base as well. Do you get that sense, not just at the doors, but talking to people who own, operate, or are part of small businesses, that they too understand that these issues like childcare, senior care, healthcare are all as important as any other P&L statement for a business?
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, another door I was knocking, a woman answered, and she had one small child, and she said she had to work part-time because she had to stay at home to watch her child, and she's living with her mom so she could manage her bills. We shouldn't have to be in a situation like that. We should be able to, parents go to work, our children go to daycare and not have to worry about finances. And the other problem to this is if you can get your child into care, because there's a wait list that's so long. I was just doing a press conference at a daycare facility here in District 2, and there's a list that's so long that it's a matter of not only getting the kids in, but now keeping the staff to manage the kids, because the money's not there to pay these employees because it's so low. That's another concern.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, we hear it all the time, and so glad that you're kind of running on that platform and talking to folks and standing up for that, because it's so important. And another issue, kind of talking about the future generation, is the whole conversation around PFAS. And I know that's really important to you as well, especially, up in that area of the state. Can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing there and what you plan to do if you get elected on that issue?
Yeah, look, the Joint Finance Committee could release the $125 million right now. We could start testing for PFAS right now if they would release those funds. But the Republicans, including Wimberger, they've decided they're not going to release it. The farmers should not be held responsible for what's being polluted. It should be the people who are polluting the farms or the land to be responsible and fined for what's being these forever chemicals that are being dragged onto the land. So that's one solution that we could actually work on right now as we're talking, but it's not being done. And if in office, that's something that I would deeply run on, because look, we can't see PFAS, we can't taste PFAS, but it's there. And we need to make sure that we're testing it to protect people in Wisconsin. And we already have, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our neighbor, Michigan, they're testing right now. So that could be a model for us. So we've got the resources to help us. I don't know why we're not doing it.
Because it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's that the wheel is purposefully not moving. It's stuck for a Republican caucus that is sitting on $125 million for more than a year now that could be addressing the contaminated water in Northeast Wisconsin and elsewhere, but isn't going to happen, isn't going to budge unless there's some changes made in the legislature. That's part of what Kelly Peterson's running on in the 2nd Senate District in Northeast Wisconsin. Kelly, great to talk to you again. Take care.
Great to talk to you. Thank you. Bye,
You
Kate.
bet. Kate
Bye.
Duffy, thank you so much. As always, head over to Motherhood for Good. Look it up on Instagram and learn all the latest about what the group is doing to get more folks, especially busy moms, involved in civic engagement. Luke Mathers joins us to wrap things up next on Up North News Radio. All right. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you very much.
All right. Talk to you later.
One.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Luke Mathers on the radio.
Oh my God, it's Luke. I seriously feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
I know. Is something different about you?
I almost sent you an email just saying, I miss you. I'm not kidding.
I did not.
It's true. I haven't seen you in a while. So
it's been a minute. Yeah. It's good to see you both.
I don't think he means it, Greg. He didn't sound sincere.
Patrick, don't you ever doubt what Luke says ever in your life in front of me again.
Okay.
Period.
All right. Fine.
Full stop.
Fine.
No stop. No. What do the kids say? No cat. I don't know. I'm not a child.
The kids. Rock and roll.
All right.
Let me tell you. You my little boo thing, so I'll give a hoot what you do say.
Greg,
What?
our little boo thing is back.
Aww. The very handsome, the very capable Luke Mather.
I know, it's been so long. Luke, something's different about you. Did you
Guys, I talked to you last week.
Did you really? Didn't feel like it. It seems
It
like
really feels like
I absolutely spoke to you guys last week at the same time slot.
I guess you weren't very memorable. All right. Well, anyway, Luke Mathers.
That's probably what it was. That's what it was. It's not like an eternity of news has occurred over those last 7 days,
Honestly,
and that I've been
what a
around
month
the northern parts of the state. But yeah,
what a month it's been this week. I mean,
yeah,
it's just-
exactly.
Oh my goodness! And you were up in the Chippewa Valley, helping record that 3rd congressional district Democratic primary debate between Rebecca Cook and Katrina Shanklin and Eric Wilson. So how did that go, and how can folks get to access that?
Yeah, it went really well. We've got a lot going on around Civic Media this week. So we've been typically broadcasting the forums for the 3rd CD Democratic candidates across the 4 stations in the 3rd CD, part of Civic Media. And so this week, since we were doing extra coverage with the RNC from 7 to 8 p.m. on all of our news talk stations, we didn't have the opportunity to broadcast it, but we still wanted to bring that forum to the listeners. So I was up in the Chippewa Valley. It was a Chippewa Valley Technical College, the Business Education Center, where the 3 candidates spoke to a crowd of more than 100 individuals that were there to hear from the candidates ahead of next month's Democratic primary on August 13th. And so it was a really good event to see and be able to cover, because it a little bit different than what's going on in Milwaukee, smaller scale, but also just good to see the candidates be able to interact on a more one-on-one basis with voters. And so we recorded the event. The forum was about an hour and a half. And instead of broadcasting it, you can go check out the podcasts on Civic Media's website. Head over to civicmedia.us. You can go to shows, and we have a show tab for our special event broadcasts. And it is there where you can find the complete forum for the 4th and final 3rd CD forum that Civic Media was excited to partner up with across the western portion of the state to be able to bring the information to the voters. And so you can head over there. Our news team, Jimmy Koska and James Kelly, also did an excellent job collaborating on a write-up of the forum, so you can go check that out. If you don't have time to listen to the entire 90-minute forum, you can see the write-up that our news team did and get all of the information there as well.
Head over there. If you go to the news section and then you go down to politics news, the story is featured prominently there right now. And I have to say, looking at the photos that accompany it, and I mean, I already knew this, but it's always nice to mention civic engagement in the Chippewa Valley. That was a good crowd in that room. And these are folks that show up at these events. They want to know what these candidates have to say. You know, there isn't a bad candidate in the mix. We have no idea how the results are going to go. There are people that very strongly support all 3 candidates, but definitely wanted to hear from all of them because of the need to unite around, you know, the nominee, the eventual winner in August. And it was just a good, healthy turnout that way.
Yeah, it was a really great event. Glad that I was able to go up there. And Pat, why do you ever leave the Chippewa Valley? That portion of the state is gorgeous. I was not able to spend enough time up there.
Palm trees and sunshine in the wintertime beckoned it to us at one point. So that was kind of nice until, as I explained to Greg earlier, you know, a triple-digit heat index every day eventually wears you down, and you like seasons again. And yeah, it's great to be back.
Yeah. It was great. I did not have enough time to request the pontoon ride, so therefore I wasn't able to swing by. But
That's okay.
it was a brief visit, and boy, do I want to try to find any excuse to spend some more time up there in the Chippewa Valley after that brief visit.
Well, guess what? It's going to work the other way first, because I am reminded that a week from tomorrow is when we're just grabbing a bunch of folks from Civic Media, and we're hitting Yacht Rock night at the Brewers game next week, Friday.
Yeah, you are.
And in fact, let's see, do I have? Oh, I've got a Yacht Rock captain's hat around here someplace. I'm sure.
A little nervous about that, Pat, because they showed off the hat that they're giving away.
Mm-hmm.
It's like for a baby.
It does look really small, doesn't it?
It's not going to fit on my gigantic dome.
Yeah.
A couple giveaways back in the previous season. I think last year or the year before, they gave away some of the bucket hats, and we were all very excited to get them. It was, I believe, Father's Day a number of years ago.
It was
and
last season.
Yes, and so we were very excited to get the bucket hats. My dad loves the free giveaways, so we got there, and me and my brothers all got the bucket hats, and they were only giving them to the adults because it was sponsored by Miller Lite, so the kids couldn't have them when we walked through the gate. But as soon as we tried to put the bucket hats on, Mather's men have notoriously larger heads, and it immediately went to my nephew, and that's where the bucket hat has resided since.
If you go to my Instagram page, you will see a picture of me from last year. I had to turn it inside out to try to fit it on my head. And then I ended up giving it to my friend's nephew. He's like, I didn't get a hat. I'm like, there you go, buddy.
There you go, yeah. So we've got a handful of Milwaukee Brewers, the Brew Crew bucket hats that just did not fit our heads. So I too, Greg, am a little worried these hats next week might run small.
So you're saying it was good for me to buy my own first. So now this is extra. It's fitting over headphones right now as well. But yes, when we were at the party store getting things for the birthday party, and Sherry pointed out the captain's hats here and said you have to have one of these. So
there you go.
Here it is. So I'll be ready. But I did go to a giveaway. I think it was like 2 years ago. There was a T-shirt one, and my buddy and I we both got the T-shirts. We looked at them and we saw a family with some kids, and we just both of them handed to the kids like, here you go, kid.
The Robin Yount jersey night. I had to go back and exchange it for a size up because it was so tight. And fanny pack night was just mean. That was just mean.
Did they not have adjustable fanny packs?
Oh, it adjusted, Luke. It didn't adjust to the healthy size of a Wisconsin man, apparently.
In other words, it was a wristwatch for you. It was
pretty much.
Yeah. So we're going to look to make the best of it next week, and I think it's going to be a great time. I'm definitely jazzed up to see you all. We haven't all been in person in the same place for a while here.
It's been that's the hardest part at Civic Media. We've got so many excellent members of the team spread out across the state, and it's always great an opportunity to get together. And so it'll be a really good time. But between now and then, be sure to tune in to special event coverage of the RNC. Terry Bell and Todd Alba doing a terrific job every night at 7 p.m.
Luke Mathers, thank you so much for that. We'll continue to follow, and don't stay away so long. We'll see you again real soon.
Sounds good. See you in 7 days.
I hope so. Greg will be on Jane's show coming up at 10. Thanks to today's guests, Scott Ross, Joe Zepecki, Richard Trent, Kelly Peterson, Kate Duffy, Luke Mathers, and to all of you for being here this morning. Up North News is the Wisconsin outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network building a more informed, engaged, and representative America. Get our newsletter at upnorthnewswi.com. Thanks for being here. Have a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow morning up north. And there goes the live